I sat there at that long, polished mahogany table, feeling the weight of the room crushing in on me. The air was heavy with tension, the kind you could slice with a butter knife, and the faint smell of my father-in-law's old cigars still clung to the walls, even though he'd been gone for weeks. Around me were faces I scarcely knew. Distant cousins, a stiff-necked lawyer with a nasal voice, and Clarissa's sister, who kept stealing looks at her phone. Clarissa was right alongside me. Her posture? Flawless. Her chin lifted just enough to let you know she thought she was better than everyone here. Jobless, sure, but always behaving. Like she owned the world. Trent, the kid she'd been dragging around lately, lingered behind her like a shadow. His hands stuffed in his pockets, smirking like he'd already won something. I didn't like him. Never had. But I kept my lips shut. That's how I am. I watch, I wait, I let things play out. The lawyer droned on, reading the will in that flat, legal tone that makes your eyes glaze over. I wasn't expecting much. My father-in-law never liked me, always believed I wasn't good enough for his little girl. Too quiet, he'd say, like silence was a crime. So when the lawyer got to Clarissa's section, I just picked at the roast meat on my plate, half listening. Then he repeated it. To my daughter, Clarissa, I leave the sum of $2 million. $2 million! The sum hit the room like a thunderclap. Forks paused. As I started her way, I felt her shift beside me, but I didn't look up. Not yet. I took another bite, chewing gently, letting the moment sink in. $2 million. For her. Not us. Her. She didn't say anything at first. The room buzzed with whispers, and I could sense Trent's grin getting broader behind us. Then she turned to me. I felt her eyes before I saw them, stinging, cold, like she'd been waiting for this. I laid my fork down, wiped my mouth with a napkin, and finally met her gaze. I'm done with your broke life, she said. Her voice was firm, slashing right through me. I'm leaving for Hawaii, with Trent. Just like that. No hesitation, no apology. The words hung there, heavy and definitive, and everyone around the table froze. I could feel their stares, pity, shock, maybe a little amusement from the ones who never liked me anyway. Trent rocked back on his heels, looking smug. Like he'd intended this all along. I didn't yell, I didn't protest, I just smiled. A small, tight smile. The kind you give when you know something they don't. I laid my knife down next to my fork, moved my chair back, and stood up. All right, I replied. My voice was calm, almost too calm. The lawyer blinked at me. Clarissa's sister put her phone onto her lap. Trent's smirk faltered for half a second, like he wasn't sure what to make of that. I didn't care. I fixed my jacket, gave the room one last look, and walked out. My footsteps echoed on the wooden floor, steady and sure, while their whispers pursued me to the door. They thought I was broken. They thought I was done. But I wasn't. Not even close. The cool air hit me as I stepped outside, and I took a long breath, letting it fill my lungs. My pickup was parked across the street, the same old, battered-up junk Clarissa always loathed. She'd called it a rust bucket more times than I could count, said it embarrassed her. I got in, turned the key, and the engine sputtered to life. Driving home, I kept replaying her words in my head. Your broke life. Broke. That's what she thought of me. That's what she'd always thought of me. Years of me paying the rent, keeping the lights on. Working late while she perused Instagram and whined about being bored, she still saw me as nothing, and now, with $2 million and that punk Trent in tow, she was headed to Hawaii. Paradise. Excellent. For her. I pulled into our apartment complex, the one she always said was beneath her, and sat there in the driver's seat for a minute. The streetlights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows through the windshield. My hands were solid on the wheel, although inside, something was churning, not fury, Not yet. Just a quiet kind of heat. I wasn't the guy she believed I was. I'd been careful. Kept my cards close. Let her think what she wanted. She didn't know about the late hours, the deals I'd been working on, the money that was starting to flow in. She didn't know because she never asked, and now she was gone, thinking she'd won, thinking she'd left me in the dust. I grabbed my keys and headed inside. The flat felt different already. Emptier, certainly, but also lighter. Her stuff was still there. The throw pillows she'd spent too much on, the perfumed candles she never lit, the half-empty coffee mug she'd left on the counter that morning. I strode past it all, straight to the fridge, and pulled out a beer. The cap popped off with a hiss, and I took a long sip, leaning against the counter. $2 million, Hawaii. Trent. Let her have it. Let her think she'd worked it all out. I wasn't going to chase her, I wasn't going to plead. I'd said all right because I meant it. She could go, I'd be fine. Better than fine. The TV flickered on as I slumped onto the couch, some late-night show I didn't care about. My phone rested on the coffee table, mute. No texts, no calls. Not that I expected any. Clarissa was probably already packing, laughing with Trent about how she'd escaped. I took another sip of beer and glanced at the TV, but my mind was somewhere else. 2 days from now, things would change. I didn't know how yet, but I could feel it coming, like a storm rolling in, slow and heavy. She'd made her move. Now it was my turn, and when I played my hand, she'd realize what broke actually meant. For now, though, I drank my beer, threw off my shoes, and let the night settle around me. Tomorrow was a new day, and I was ready for it. Too late for anyone natural to be calling. I rubbed my eyes, went for it, and saw the number, Clarissa. My gut twisted just a little. I hadn't heard from her since she left. Not a word beyond that Instagram video showcasing her new life in Maui. And now, here she was, phoning me in the middle of the night. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. Didn't say anything, just held the phone to my ear and waited. Tom? Her voice came through, wobbly, cracked around the margins. She was crying. I could hear it in the way her breath hitched. Tom, are you there? I stayed quiet for a second, letting the silence stretch. Yeah, I said ultimately, keeping it flat. What's going on? She wept, loud and messy, the kind of crying she used to do when she wanted me to feel awful for her. Can you send me money, please? I don't have anything left. My hand clenched around the phone. Money. That's why she was phoning, not to say sorry, not to explain, just to ask for cash. I sat up, sluggish, the couch creaking under me as I took a breath. What happened? I asked, though I already had a pretty decent guess. She sniffed, her words pouring out swiftly. It's gone. Half of it, half the inheritance. $1 million. Trent took it. He took my card, my jewelry, everything, and he's gone. I woke up and he wasn't here, and the bank called. They said someone drained the account overnight. I'm stuck. Here, Tom, I can't pay the motel. I can't get home. Please, I need help. Her voice broke again, and she started crying harder. I fell back, staring at the ceiling, the TV's blue light bouncing off the walls. $1 million. Trent had played her, just like I'd imagined he would. I wasn't shocked. People like him don't stick around for love. They stick around for what they can take. I didn't say anything right away. Half of me wanted to hang up. Let her sit in the mess she'd made. She'd left me, called me broke, run off to Hawaii with that punk, and now here she was, asking. But another part of me, the part that remembered the years we'd spent together, the silent evenings before she started hating me, kept me on the line. How'd he get your card? I asked, my voice steady. She hiccuped despite her tears. I don't know. I trusted him. We were sharing everything, the room, the account. I didn't think he'd... She paused, like she couldn't even say it. I could imagine her now, sitting in some expensive hotel room, mascara pouring down her cheeks. Alone. Paradise had turned, become a nightmare, just like I imagined it would. I stood up, headed to the kitchen, and grabbed a glass of water. The phone stayed pressed to my ear, her sobs filling the calm. "So he's gone," I said, more to myself than her. "Packed his stuff and bailed." She didn't react, just cried louder. I took a sip, the cold water slapping my throat, and leaned against the counter. 2 days ago, she'd been gloating poolside, calling me dead weight. Now she was broke, stranded, and contacting me at 3 a.m. I should have felt something. Fury, maybe, or satisfaction. But I didn't. Just a dreary kind of emptiness. "Tom, please," she pleaded. "I know I messed up, I know I wounded you, but I'm terrified. I don't know what to do." I laid the glass down, my fingers tapping the counter. "You've got $1 million left, don't you?" I asked. She sniffed.